everybody. Welcome to College Bound Information Night. This is a great session that we have for you for anybody who's interested in going to college, have students going to college, and it just is kind of a high-level overview of what's involved in the application process and selecting colleges and all of those things. So first things first, I am Jennifer Butts, and I am one of the college and career coordinators. I've been in the school for about 2 years and working with Kathy Stallkamp, who I will let her introduce herself.
I'm Kathy Stallkamp, work with Jen in the College and Career Center, and have been running the College and Career Center for 6 years.
So we are the happy team, and we love meeting with students. That's what we live for. So here we go. So we will jump right into this presentation. If you have questions, you can feel free to just type them in the chat, and Kathy will be going through the chat and just taking note of questions. And then if there's something relevant to the slide that we're on, she can interject and answer that question at that time. And then at the end, we'll go through some more Q&A. So that's how that'll work. And I think, I'm not positive, but as a webinar, is the ability to turn off a speaker and ask a question there? No. Okay, so just type your questions in the chat. So there we go. All right, so next slide, please. So the first thing to consider when you're looking for colleges and thinking about colleges is the different types of colleges. And basically, you can break it down into public, community college, and private schools. Some examples of public schools are Oregon State, University of Oregon, and Portland State, all pretty good sized schools. And then there's some other smaller schools, Western Oregon, Southern Oregon, things along those lines. Community college, I think we have 17 community colleges in Oregon, in the state of Oregon. That number may have changed, but I'm pretty sure that's where we are at this point. Typically a 2-year college, one that you're able to get a transfer degree starting off with 2 years and then moving to a 4-year university, or learn a trade. So a lot of community colleges will have some really great trade programs where you can learn a variety of things, from auto mechanics to welding, all sorts of different things, beauty school and such. So. And then private schools, a couple examples are George Fox University and Pacific University. And then there's a few others in the Portland area, Reed and Linfield, and a good variety. So that gives you an overview there. So next slide. Things, once you've decided or are considering of the different college sizes or different college types you have, are considerations for what you want to think about when choosing a college. First of all, if majors and minors are something to look into when you're going to websites or using Naviance, which is a tool that we have within the school for students to utilize. If there's a career path that the student's interested in exploring, obviously those majors and minors offered at those schools are of importance. Cost, so that's always what is the ticket price of that school? Looking at websites for information. A lot of times when you look at a school website, the sticker price there is tuition only. You want to make sure that you're looking at tuition plus housing, if that's something that you're considering. And so there's a lot of things there to consider. Where is the campus? Location. Is it within a city? Is it far away? What is the setting? The size of the school is always something to consider. Oregon State's a pretty big campus. Berkeley is a really big campus, where Western Oregon is a very small campus. George Fox is super small. So it all depends. And when we guide students through these processes of trying to figure out what school is best for them, I always like to think of an example I had with my kids as they were deciding for schools. We were in the city of New York, and one of my daughters was like absorbing everything and loved every second of it. And my other one was like, this is a big place and it's way too busy for me. So I always try to encourage kids when they're looking for schools to think of what environment do they like? Do they like crazy busy, lots of students, or something a little more calm? So. Also, location of campus, is it a rural setting or is it in the city? So those are things to consider as well. Do they have housing options on campus, off campus? Do they have apartments available? Obviously, activities, sports, music, if there's any clubs the students are interested in, those are key to consider. What is the graduation rate? So this is important to look at that they have on websites for the colleges. And that is, look at if there's a, what is that? Is it a high percentage of graduation within 4 years? Or maybe is it within 5 years? Was that a different percentage? Kind of gives you an idea of what are the amount of students that stay there and that are able to get the classes they need to graduate within a certain amount of years. And then what does their college and career center look like? Do they have a good internship and job placement program? Do they have fairs on campus? Are there guaranteed internships? All sorts of things to consider. All right, next. Thank you. So when you're visiting a college, whether this is a virtual visit, as is this year, or actual in-person visit, or even visiting with a college representative, these are all things to ask about and to consider. Again, looking at housing options. Where are the dorms? What types of different housing? Some schools actually have houses that kids can live in, sororities or just houses they can rent. When do the kids live in the dorms? Is there a two-year minimum that the students have to live in the dorms? Or those types of parameters change from school to school. The proximity of the dorms to classes and to local businesses. Some kids really like Taco Bell, and so they want to know that their dorm is within a half a mile of Taco Bell or something like that. So those are kind of funny things to consider, but those are things to think about, the things that are important to the student. Food service, what type of food do they offer? If your child or if the student has vegetarian needs or gluten-free, some schools will provide a huge variety of options for students to eat, and some don't. There are schools out there that just don't have a large variety of food options in their dining halls. Availability of the classes. Are the students able to get the classes that they need in order to graduate in a certain amount of time? Do they have a specific advisor that they use, or is there an advising center that they go to? What is the availability of the professors? Do they have office hours? How easy is it to get a hold of the professors? And then tutoring, academic help, and for students who have special requirements for learning. What do those pictures look like? Are they within a library, or are they at a tutoring center? Or how easy it is for students to access that? Who provides that help? And then social life. Do the students want a Greek system? Do they want to join sororities, fraternities? Do they want different types of clubs, leadership opportunities, that kind of stuff? So again, if you have questions, just go ahead and type them in and Kathy will monitor. So next slide, please. So we have, there are a variety of different ways to visit college, and college visit days are specific to colleges, Tualatin High School, and college fairs. So at Tualatin, we have specific times that colleges will come in and meet with students. And they will, two different things. So they'll come in, a rep will come in and meet with a variety of students on specific days throughout the year, and students can sign up for those college visits. And then also we may have a college fair or something like that within our school. Other types of college fairs, there are national college fairs, there's regional college fairs, all sorts of different options for students to attend. Some are at the convention center, some are at different locations in the Portland area and other states, some are virtual. I have a feeling they might still have some virtual college fairs this next year, but who knows? It's all up in the air with this virtual stuff, so not quite sure where that's going to go. Some college, like Oregon State, will have a college visit day, and that's where a collection of high school students, they invite all high school students to come down and come at a certain time, and they have an entire day of activities for students to explore the colleges, explore the different options and availability of dorms and things like that. So lots of activities for them to get to know the college. So and I talked a little bit already about those college visits, that we have representatives that come all year round, and students sign up and meet with those college reps. And I always like to point out that those reps are actually the ones that will be making the decisions in many cases on the application. So we really encourage students to go to those college visits and ask questions, get their faces, if they're really interested in the school, get their faces seen by the college representatives. It makes a difference, or at least it could. Next slide. So what do colleges consider when they receive an application and they're going through the students' credentials, basically, for admission? GPA is obviously one of them. A lot of people concentrate on GPA, and it is important. However, it's not the only thing. So a lot of colleges will take what's called a holistic approach to exploring a college or considering a student's application. And GPA is one of those things. They'll also look at the SAT and ACT and SAT scores. And we'll talk a little bit about that more in a couple slides. Application essays. Essays are important. They are read. The college reps do read them, and they explore who the student is in a college application essay. And we're going to have a great seminar coming up on that next week. So we highly recommend students sign up for that. It will be a great tool. High school activities. Students are really encouraged to jump in, get involved. Join one club, join a bunch, whatever, anything will help them open them up to the different things of life. And that's what colleges are looking for, is what exposure kids have to different aspects of life. Basically, they want them to be, interested in things. Volunteer work outside of school, even inside of school, shows a commitment to the community. And work experience. Some students work 25 hours a week, and they may not have those high school activities and volunteer work. But they did work a lot. So that's something that colleges will definitely take into consideration. Okay, next slide. So this is where we get a little bit into the ACT and SAT scores. Might have heard this year with the pandemic that there was a different trend that went on throughout almost all colleges, changed their parameters, and they went to a test optional process. And what that means is because students weren't able to take their tests in the spring and then fall of this last year, 2019 and 20, the colleges said, well, we will make them optional. So you can decide whether or not you want to submit your test scores. And it won't be part of the decision process. However, some colleges would use those test scores to determine what type of scholarship students will get. So sometimes submitting them might be a good idea, because then it might determine you might get an academic scholarship based on your test scores. A lot of other schools went test blind, and that means that they do not consider any test scores for admission. Will that stay this way next year or the years to come? I think it seems like a lot of colleges are indicating that they will stay test optional, but we don't know for sure. Kathy and I don't know. And many times even the college reps don't know. So it's, I'm sure, being discussed, and a lot more information will be coming out over the summer and then the fall as to what schools are staying test optional and what the timeline might be. The ACT is always given to Tualatin High School students, and next year the seniors will be getting it in the fall, and juniors will be able to take it in the spring. When they take those tests, they're able to give it to for free to 4 schools, and they'll put those down on their test when they take it, and it's a pretty good deal. That a lot of schools don't offer that, so it's a great way to get that test out of the way. Next slide.
So Jen, really quickly, I just want to back on that. I want to clarify that while we don't know exactly what schools are doing as far as the ACT and whether they'll be test optional, test blind, we do know some schools have already made a statement that for sure they will continue to be test optional. And one of those schools is University of Oregon. So they have said going forward, they're not going to collect, make it mandatory to collect those test scores. And the trend is that more and more schools are kind of saying that. And I think that the pandemic kind of forced schools to evaluate this option. So we just don't know for sure if all the schools are going to stay that way long term. Thanks.
Yep. Fingers crossed, I suppose, for many. Thank you very much for adding that. There are a list, a lot of people are wondering the ACT or the SAT, which one do I take? Do I take both? It really, all colleges accept both. So it doesn't necessarily matter that much. These are two lists right here of what the ACT and the SAT are highlighted. Basically the same length of test. ACT's got a few more questions, definitely the same time frame of the test that's taken. SAT tends to be more math heavy, they say, but there's a lot of different parameters around both tests. Some people say ACT is more science-based. It all depends. But this chart is here and it might give you a little bit of a glimpse as far as what the differences are between the ACT and SAT. Kathy, do you have anything to add there? Yeah, so pretty basic stuff, and there's a lot on the internet about it. So we can move on, and this chart is available. We're recording everything, and this chart's available on the College and Career website, so you'll be able to see that. Okay, next slide, thank you. So application timelines. This is something that always becomes a great discussion in the fall. There's early decision, and there's early action, and regular decision. These are the three basic deadlines that students will adhere to when they're filling out their applications. So the early decision deadline and the early action are typically in October, November time period to get their application in. They can determine the early decision, meaning when they get their response, when they decide they want to go to that school, it's a binding decision, meaning they will be definitely going to that school the next fall. If they get their early action decision, they get a response back sooner than if it's a regular decision response. So usually in the spring or so, but the time does vary. They don't necessarily have to make a decision at that time as far as if they want to go. But they get to find out early whether or not they're getting in. So a lot of students who have a dream school, they really want to go to that school, they'll go for an early action option, and then they just know. So they get a little peace of mind. And then there's regular decision, and those deadlines are usually January, early February to get their applications in. And then they get their regular acceptance. So they get their admission in late spring usually. And then they have to decide what college they want to go to May 1st typically. So that's pretty much your application timeline. And then the final application for rolling, a lot of rolling application process like or Portland State, they don't necessarily have a deadline to apply, and they more have a rolling application, and that would be in August. PCC is that way as well. Okay, next slide. This cuts down to the dollars and cents. So here you have your typical college costs. This chart shows you typical public schools, an example of a private school, your community college, and then out-of-state price tag. So you'll see that Portland State and Oregon State are about the same. You'll see that the tuition is either the same or maybe a little less than housing. And housing is something that you really want to factor in when you're looking at colleges because it's a pretty hefty dollar sign for housing. So Portland State, Oregon State, around 25,000 or so. PCC is close to 6,000. It's a great opportunity for students to jump into school at a lesser price and then start at a 4-year as a junior and start paying a higher price at that time. So they're saving half there. George Fox is a example of a private school in Portland area, a little bit higher price tag there for tuition. So housing is about the same as the rest, but tuition's pretty high. And then University of Washington is a great example of an out-of-state school. So the tuition is basically the same as PSU and OSU, but look at the out-of-state column, we've jumped up to 40,000. So that's very typical for any school that's outside the state you live in. And that comes up basically to more of a private school price tag. And then University of Oregon's on the bottom there, which is pretty similar to the other two in state. So we always recommend, pretty much every college website will have a net calculator on their website, and you can pretty much get your price tag based on whether or not you're living on or off campus, what kind of financial aid you're estimating to get, what is your, what is your income, that kind of thing. And they'll be able to compute all of that and kind of spit out to you what an estimated number of your tuition would be. So hopefully that makes sense. Next.
Hey, Jen, one thing
Yep.
I just noticed.
Go back.
The University of Washington, there's an error there. I think it's in the total, but 11 and 13 and 39 don't equal 53. They would equal 63.
Oh.
So nonetheless, the point is the out-of-state tuition costs make it just a lot more money.
Definitely. Yeah. It puts it more at a private school rate. However, private schools have been offering, they'll offer scholarships. So they try to bring their rates down to a state school sometimes, and by offering scholarships. So that's something to consider too. I think a lot of private schools have been doing that this year. Don't know if that'll continue. Okay, next. Thank you. What is WUI? I just like saying that. So you may have heard Western Undergraduate Exchange is the WUI program. And what this is basically considered a scholarship for students who live in one of those states and then attend a school in one of those states. So there's 160 colleges in those particular states. And if the student is applying to that school, they would fill out the school application. There may be a separate application to be considered for the WUI program. And we recommend that you talk to the admissions department to find out if that does exist, or if it's just that consideration is included on the regular application. But basically, then the admissions department would consider the application, and in response would send the financial package and let you know whether or not you were able to take advantage of the WUI program. So it's a nice deal. You're able to pay in-state tuition, or at least a considerably reduced tuition if you're going to school in one of those states and live in one of those states. Okay, next. The Common App. So this is also a word that gets thrown around a lot in the college application season. What the Common App is a kind of what it refers to. It's an application that will apply to multiple colleges. So there's over 800 colleges that utilize the Common App. Those colleges also may have their own application that students can complete. So they have a choice to fill out one or the other. Not all schools use it. It is very detailed. It includes information on GPA, sports, clubs, work, service, and transcript, but it's very detailed information. The students have to kind of break down and describe each activity and each thing that they've taken part in. There are 4 personal statement essays that they write. Also, there might be an essay by the specific college they're applying to. So they at least have to write 4 personal statements plus anything else that the college requires that they're specifically applying to. And then there's also reference letters, and they have to get a counselor recommendation. It's really great tool if you're applying to multiple schools that take the Common App, and we definitely recommend that. However, if a student's only applying to 2 schools or 1 school, but maybe 2 schools that utilize the Common App, we really don't recommend it because it is a little bit more work than filling out just a regular like Oregon State application. So if a student's going to Oregon State and not going to any other schools that take the Common App, we highly recommend just filling out the Oregon State application and leaving it at that. So hopefully that made sense. It is a great tool, but it's not the only way to apply to a college. So, all right, next one. So what do students need for college applications? Pretty basic information. Obviously, they'll need transcripts, any IB classes, any college like dual credit courses that they've taken for college credit, usually an essay. Not all colleges require an essay, but many do. Letters of recommendation. Again, not all require them, but probably many, well, many do. And then the ACT or SAT scores, depending on what we talked about before. To get those scores, you would want to request them, register on that act.org or go to the College Board to have those scores sent in. College Board is for ACT or SAT, sorry. And then you want to make sure that the student uses, when they're logging into ACT or the College Board, that they use the same email address that they entered when they were taking the test. Sometimes we have students that have trouble logging in, and that's usually the culprit. So something to be considered. Okay. Next one. So what can freshmen and sophomores be doing right now? On our college and career website, we do have this information on the first page, on the home page, list for what you can do each grade. But right now, freshmen and sophomores can be exploring careers of interest. So there's many, many different tools to do this. You know, internships, job shadows, just start thinking of what do I want to do. But try getting involved in it, researching. Naviance has a really great career tool that can be used, and we will be launching also another aptitude type career assessment very soon, and that will be coming out to students as well. So we're excited about that. We'll be explaining that more a little bit later. They can also research colleges of interest, look through different colleges, go to websites, use Naviance, and we can explain to them there's different wizards that can be used through Naviance on how to find the college that's best suited. Get involved in sports and clubs at school, definitely. Volunteer in the community. There's so many opportunities. And on our college and career website, we have a whole list of volunteer opportunities in the community. Record activities and volunteer experience. This will definitely help them as they're going through applications, if they keep a record of what they've done. And even if they want to get really detailed, they could list how many days they did it or the time frame or something like that, because people will ask, and it's on applications, and it's good to have on resumes anyway. So not a bad idea to keep a record of that. And then of course, maintain and improve the GPA. So bigger is always better, not necessarily, but it helps to keep the GPA going and stay focused in school. Okay, let's move to juniors. What can juniors be doing on the next slide? Study for that ACT test, which is scheduled for the fall. So there's plenty of different options on the counseling website and the college and career site on how to prepare for the ACT and the SAT tests. And there's a lot of different opportunities of studying for it. Identify individuals you might think, teachers, counselors, that would be willing to do a letter of recommendation and that would know you and be able to speak to your strengths. Work on that college essay over the summer. Again, on Tuesday next week, on the 25th, we're having a college essay workshop where students can learn a little bit on how to write that essay and how to get started on it. Because there's a lot to it, and it is important. Start applying to colleges of interest over the summer. There's nothing wrong with starting to just fill out the application, because they do take some time to do, and then you could get started on those essays if you're filling out the application. Visit colleges. Even if you're going somewhere and you can just drive through campus, it really, really helps for the student to just get an idea of what the college looks like. You could look at the map and then pick out dorms and the dining hall and things like that. Get out and walk around a little bit if you can. It doesn't have to be a formal tour. So it's really nice for the student to be able to just see where they're applying and have a picture in their brain. And then stay focused on classes and that GPA. All righty, next one. These are our upcoming events. Monday next week, we have a military night, which is a great way to explore different opportunities in the military, but also opportunities in helping pay for college. There's some really wonderful ways that the military can assist in that way. So this college and career scholarship essay night we have on the 25th. Financing college is another presentation that's being done on the 1st. Scholarships, Naviance, and more. Kathy and I will be doing that, and it's an outline of scholarships that are available, mainly some local scholarships that we have some insight on, and then how to use Naviance, which students will learn about. in classes as well. And then all of our events are at 6:30, as you already know, because you're here. And then 7:30 in Spanish, and everything is recorded and is on our website. So I hope that everybody will visit our website, because all of that information that I've talked about tonight is there. It's on Tualatin High School website, and it's under counseling, so college and career. All right, and the next screen gives you some contact information of all of the important people in the world. Well, just a few, I guess. But there's the College and Career Center. There's Kathy and I and our contact info. Martine and Yasmin are part of the multicultural coordinator and the partnership advocate, and then all of the counselors. So Lauren, Kat, Jessica, Christy, Holly, and Jen. So they are an amazing team of people who take care of those students. So that is it. We did it. Were there any good questions, Kathy?
So we didn't have any questions, but there's a note here that if participants have questions, they have to use the QA button to ask that. So is there anybody on that has any questions for us? If you could just, what is Naviance? That's such a great question. You want me to do it, Jen?
If you want to. Go ahead.
Naviance is a program that we use in our school. All of our students have access to it, and parents actually can have access also. And it's really it's a pretty expansive program that has a search engine with information on every college. So you can search for colleges and get information on those colleges as far as where they are, requirements to get into that school, the kind of programs they offer, the activities, everything on the school. It also has a whole career section, so you can take different tests and then find out which careers maybe suit your personality. It's also the place that we list all of our scholarships. We also we do our transcript requests in there. So it's basically, like I said, everything that's college related and career related that our students have access to. Anybody else? Do you need an access code? So what we actually need is we have to give you access as a parent. If you could, I'm just going to put email in the chat, and then you can email us and request that. And it's what we'll do is we'll authorize it in the system, and then you'll get an email, and then it'll give you access to it. So it's .us. Make sure I type that right. So it's just, our first initial last name at ttsd.k12.or.us, and we can give you access. We are going to, in one of our upcoming events, we're going to talk about Naviance a little bit and kind of show some of the different features that it has. Like I said, the search tools, and then there's a couple tools in there that I think are just super interesting that allow students to look at Naviance and enter in a school, and then look at what the other students with their similar GPA and their similar test scores have gotten into the school or not. So it's just kind of a great tool that kids can use to look at that. There's also a pretty cool tool that allows the students to say, I want to be in a city setting. I want a school that maybe has soccer and a school where I can go study biology. And then it'll come back and say, you enter whatever criteria. Oh, and I only want it to cost $30,000. And then, and I want it to be in the state of Montana. So you can enter whatever data you want in there, and then it'll come back and say, oh, here are schools you should consider. So again, kind of a cool thing for kids to be able to do some searching. Let's see.
There was a question about find a schedule of colleges that are visiting, which is a very good question. That's another thing that, do I have to type answer live? I think that's right. So am I answering live now? So where can we find a schedule of colleges that are visiting Tualatin High School? So in Naviance, we have a full list of all of the colleges that are coming to visit. And if a student has expressed interest in a school, they'll get an email saying that that college is coming to visit. So they would express interest within Naviance, and then they'll get notification. And then it's also listed on the front page of Naviance. And we will send out messages in the announcements every week in the school bulletin, what colleges are coming up to visit. So that information does get out. And let's see, parents get access to Naviance. Did that question got answered? And then where can I find summer internship opportunities?
Go ahead, do that one, and I'll do the next.
Okay, sorry. So where can I find summer internship information? On the College and Career website, and also on Naviance, there's volunteer opportunities, that page. And that does list some internships that are available. And also some on the jobs page. There's a kind of a mixture on the job opportunity page, which is in the same place. Because some companies will offer jobs, but then there's a few in there that also have internships. So those two locations are the best places to look.
And then I would encourage, if a student wants an internship, for them to come talk to us.
Yeah.
Starting in kind of that midwinter, right? About January and February, we there's two programs specifically that I can think of that offer internships for students. So one of them is through Saturday Academy, and they offer internships in STEM fields. Great opportunities for high school students to get out and get real world kind of environment experience. And then there's a couple other things like that. So there's another one that deals just with construction and architecture and civil engineering. So those, and the Saturday Academy deals also with medical. And those things come to us usually in January, where the application process starts. So if your student has a particular interest, have them come see us, just so we can kind of get on their radar and they can get on our radar. And then there was a question, Jen, about the typical college application costs, and is there a way to waive it? So, you know, that's a really good point, is that most of the colleges do charge an application fee. And that fee, I would say, ranges from $50 to $75. So you can imagine if you're applying at 10 schools that you're forking out, you know, $500. The community colleges tend not to charge. And if you are a family that gets free and reduced lunch, they can waive that fee. There are also a couple of exceptions if you go to your counselor where you could possibly get the fee waived. And then this year, during the pandemic, a lot of schools were actually waiving fees. So the other thing I've heard is sometimes if you go to a presentation by a school, like if you come to the Tualatin High College visit, sometimes they waive your fee. Our local schools will sometimes, like Western Oregon, they'll waive fees just if you come to an event at Tualatin High. So there are some things you can do depending on the schools you're looking at. There are other schools. I worked with a student who was looking at Harvard, and Harvard basically said, yes, we don't really waive fees. So that's going to vary school by school. Do you see this one, Jen, about the WUI?
Yeah. There isn't a benefit. Is there, Kathy? I mean, that's no, because you're already in state. So WUI is pretty much for, well, it is for if you wanted to go to an out-of-state school, then not in Oregon, then it would benefit you to take advantage of WUI if you can. Any other questions? You guys have really good questions.
Let me see. So one other thing I was thinking that I wanted to really stress was Jen mentioned a little bit about doing college visits. And She talked about how we have the admissions rep come to Tualatin High. You can go to a college fair. The schools have specific college visit days. So like Oregon State every year will do a visit day where they give tours of the campus, they give tours of a dorm. They usually give away free stuff, sometimes t-shirts or just little things. And then they usually have where individual academic program, you will like break off where, if you're going into whatever the engineering program, you go to one room. If you're going to business, you go to another. And they talk about those academic programs. They talk about kind of the research at the school, that kind of thing. It's a really great way to really see the school and see the full amount of the school, kind of that full feature. If you can't make one of those, though, you can actually call the college admissions office and say, can I schedule a tour? And so that's a way to get a one-on-one experience. I really recommend to people when you go to our campus, as wonderful as those, broad views when they do their days are, it's really nice to grab a student and say things like, how easy is it to register for classes? How easy is it to get the classes you want? How easy is it to work with your professors or get in touch with your professors? How easy is it to get involved in the community? Because the students really have those answers, right? When you go to the admission days, they're giving you their best spiel. And so grab a student and get some of those answers. And that's a great way to really get a feel of the school and what kids like and what they don't.
Sometimes the tour guide can make or break the school too. There was William had is the information on Naviance being updated, especially with special COVID circumstances? That's updated constantly, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So yes.
Yep.
Any other questions? We are available, well, all the time, but no. Kathy works most of the day, and I work pretty much in the mornings, but we're available to students when they need us. And we do the full service deal where we're able to help with applications and review essays and help with resumes and do mock interviews. And we just love to help them. So whatever questions your students have, and if there's students listening, whatever questions you have, just come in and ask us. Definite open door, because we don't even have a door in our offices. So you can just wander right in. We love it. So there you go.
So Thor, will you go back to the previous slide just to talk about the upcoming events a little bit? So as Jen said, the military night, we're going to have all branches of the military there. And one reason we wanted to present that tonight is that there are some incredible scholarship opportunities for kids to go to school while they're in the military. So if that's maybe an avenue you want to look at, where basically they can go to school for free by joining different branches of the military, the Guard, or by doing a reserve. So they can do both military part-time and then go to school. The College and Scholarship Essay is offered by a company called Prompt. And they offer a really cool service where students can send an essay to them and they'll do some evaluation on that essay for free. We do that as well, but this is just a new opportunity that we have that we want to present to people. The Financing College Night is going to be this really high level kind of how do you position yourself financially to get the most money. It's going to talk a little bit about the different options for people federally and state level to get funding. And then Our last one there, the scholarships, Naviance more. We're going to cover some of those features we talked about tonight, Naviance and scholarships. And then we're also going to cover a little bit more about that financing college night is really devoted a lot to people at that high income level. And then in the other one, we'll probably talk a little bit more about people that are going to get some of that free money. Anything else? Okay. Thank you all very much for coming. Feel free to reach out to us. Have your kids reach out to us. We love helping people.